So I'm going to be introducing Jim Agee to you. I'll give you a little bit of my background and the perspective that I have. I was district membership chair 10 years ago in Northeast Florida. During that time, the Jacksonville Club was our biggest, and it was losing net 15 members a year. And as a membership chair, I came to realize 3 years in a row, it was almost impossible for the rest of the district to find a way to make up for that. Then when I became district governor, I knew something was changing because I knew some of the folks said, we've got a plan. And when I was district governor, they started gaining 15 members net per year. So I went to see what was going on, and I found a bunch of things. And here's the good news. When you meet with the president and president-elect and past president and president nominee of the Jacksonville Club, they speak with one voice. It is awesome how well they think things through and the strategies they put together. It was 3 years prior to 2019, the time that they really had 2018-19, they did breakout growth. But it was 3 years before that that they put their act together. So I think it's great. Jim is known throughout our community as doing great stuff with the Rotary Club. They did kind of slow down during the pandemic, but they've got their wheels underneath them now. And Jim, how about telling us what's the difference?
Okay, very good. That's exactly correct. John Fryer was our president in 2015 when collectively the club recognized we had a big problem, and he came up with a strategic plan that covered a lot of different things that are keys to a vibrant club, how we structured our foundation, how we did our programs and public image, and then of course membership. But we made membership a priority. And we got the leaders of the club together that were the committee chairs and the board, and we sat down and had a very honest discussion. We'll start with, it was all data driven. Now, Mary's done a great job of throwing that out in front of you, but back in 2015, we had to do that ourselves. We didn't have those templates. There wasn't the goal worksheet that was on in my goals in my Rotary, and the district, Mike, has provided now a membership goal setting worksheet, which lays it out beautifully for everybody. So those tools are in place now, but back in 2015, they weren't. And we looked at our data and saw that at 10% a year, we were a 300 member club. You know, we're losing 30 members a year. If we're gaining 15 or 20, which we thought was pretty good, we were still losing. So the first thing was just to identify we have a problem and we need to fix it. So that was the first thing. The second thing is we had to decide, who are we and what do we want to be? And that is harder than you think, especially for a big club. We're the first club in Florida, 41st club in Rotary. We have traditions. We're set in our ways. We don't change. That can be a positive and it can sometimes be a negative. So where it was a positive is we were very well known. We had a great reputation. Our programs were very good, but we weren't capitalizing on it. So we said, okay, who are we? We were known as the business leaders. So there was in development, if you were the membership chair prior to me even joining the club in 2011, you wouldn't be offered membership or even a potential member of our club unless you were the decision maker in your organization. So you had to be the owner, the president, the CEO, the chairman of the board. If you were just the second or third guy down, the Rotary Club of Jacksonville wasn't even interested in you. So we looked at that and said, we need to relax that. And the main reason was when we answered the second question, who do we want to be? We wanted to represent Jacksonville. We wanted to reflect Jacksonville, and we did not. A decade ago, because we were sticking with this top of the food chain membership development strategy, we were very Caucasian, very male, and all of us were over 60. So if we wanted to build some kind of succession plan that was going to capture the way Jacksonville was changing, then we had to change the members. We needed to change who we wanted to develop. So we did that, and we recognized realistically that there was going to be a cost to that, and there was. We had a dip again when the people who were part of the old guard did not like the direction we were headed. And so we had to factor that in, and we had to accept it, and we had to accept the pushback. And this is where Mike's comments come in, and I'm going to underline and highlight them. We all had to agree that we weren't going to change, that this was the direction we were going to go, and we were going to stick to it. And we developed our follow-on leaders, the people we nominated to be on the board or nominated to be the president-elect designee and work their way up to be president, to be fully engaged in this and to buy into this plan, this strategy. I'm going to give some specific examples just so you can get a feel for what I'm talking about. But by no means do I, and Mary and I talked about this ahead of time, this is just a template. This worked for Jacksonville because of who we are. It's not to say, do these specific things and you're going to grow your club. That is not my intent of my examples. It's just to say, okay, how did this work? And I'm going to use this as a framework. So one of the first things that we did is we said, all right, let's look at department heads. Let's look at people on boards. It doesn't have to be the guy owning or running the company. And when you do that, then that lowers the age. It opens up more female opportunities. And we started a partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. And Rotary's not Chamber of Commerce. We don't want to be the Chamber of Commerce, but we needed to have access to minority businesses because socially, we didn't know those people, and Rotary is social. So we needed to find a way to make those connections. And we did it through our chamber by just having a dual membership, if you will. We offered the president of the Chamber of Commerce membership in Rotary. All of the presidents became members of the Chamber of Commerce. And so we started meeting people that we wouldn't otherwise meet. And that was one of the ways that we started to develop new members. One of the other things we did is we relaxed our strict classification. Rotary International did that a while ago, but we kept it because we wanted to just have the main auto sales guy. We wanted the main insurance guy. We wanted the top dog lawyer in whatever field. We decided collectively that we needed to relax that to be able to bring in more diversity. And an example, Tim Koss is the president of Jacksonville University. So we had a university president and we didn't consider anybody else. Well, as soon as we opened our eyes and looked around, we went down and got Ed Waters University president. You know, he wanted to be in the club, but we never even approached him. We never even made him feel welcome. And so we brought another member in, a Black, African-American into the club. And then his connections, he knows people we don't know. And it's all about creating those connections. And we started to really diversify by making a conscious effort to do something like that. So those are some of the things that we did. The other thing we had to acknowledge, and this was really a sore point with a lot of our older members who were owners, who were the top of the food chain, was they said, you're watering down the club. This isn't the club it used to be. We always used to be the top tier. If you weren't the decision maker in the club, you weren't in this room. And it's going to be harder to get good speakers. It's going to be harder. That virtuous circle that we had, people wanted to speak to the Rotary Club of Jacksonville because of who was in the audience. And you wanted to be in the audience because you wanted to hear those people speak. And you had a ticket to come in. It's closed door. It's not open to the public. And we stood fast. Like Mike said, we had a succession of, I'm 10th president in a row to follow this strategy, and said, if that's the way you feel and you don't feel like you fit in this club anymore, okay, but I'm going to challenge you with this. We're not getting the new CEOs. We're not getting your successors, because they have their own marketing departments now. They've got their own public image. Back in your day, you came and joined Rotary because you got the prestige of being in the Rotary Club of Jacksonville. And that was your community service. You could sell that as, and I'm the member of Rotary Club of Jacksonville, so of course I'm engaged in the community. That is not the case anymore. We found that the Rotary brand does not carry that weight, and that most of our big time CEOs in Jacksonville, they have their own departments. They got a whole department that's as big as the Rotary Club of Jacksonville to do their branding and their community engagement, and to sell that they're doing good things in the community. So that strategy was failing. And that was part of the reason we had such a precipitous decline in membership. So when we got away from that and went down a tier or two, now we found people who I think had the right idea about Rotary. They wanted the business networking because they were younger, but they also wanted to improve their community because they've got kids that are in school. They've got people growing up in the community. They want to stay there. They want to see Jacksonville better. And then you also kind of mellowed out that hardcore group to where the friendships that sometimes sustain you after you retire, you don't get, didn't get the loss. Our retention was better because now we had more friendships, people who wanted to come to Rotary, not only for the business and the foundation work and the grant work, but also they just enjoyed being with each other, having lunch. So that helped as well. The other thing, just some specific things we did. Again, this is just template. Don't, you know, it's not that you got to do this. Recognizing that Jacksonville is a military town. So we've got headquarters of the Florida National Guard. We've got 3 Navy bases. You know, I'm Air Force. The Florida Air National Guard is there at Jacksonville International. We decided to specifically, intentionally target the commanders as they left these installations with this service above self mentality already. And as they transitioned into civilian world, we had made them honorary members when they were the commanders, and then we transitioned them into becoming active members. And then they use their networks to reach out to other people. And we've had tremendous growth with just that one strategy. And I'm going to give a specific example of yesterday. I brought in a friend of mine from the Florida National Guard, General, 4-star General Craig McKinley, who was chief of staff, on the chief of staff. And we sat at the table with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was the Guard bureau chief. And I brought in another wing commander from out there who's now retired, a 2-star General, Major General Bob Brannion. So those are 2 members that Mary doesn't even have those numbers because I just brought them in yesterday. But it is an idea of finding an avenue where you can branch out and connect people and get that momentum going. And that's just one. I mean, you could be doctors, it could be lawyers, it could be real estate agents, it could be anything, and focus on it. So that's one of the things we've done. The other thing we've done is we've always had the nonprofits in our club because we are the downtown club. So we've got the Symphony, we've got the Florida Theater, we've got the Salzbacher Center, and we got the Kummer and the Museum of Science and History. And we had the executive directors of all these things, but they're just there with their hand out. They're just there to try to work the tables and do their marketing. And over time, as they tried to get to the podium and do a better pitch, the membership as a whole got tired of that. And they wanted better programming in the sense they didn't always want to feel like every time they showed up on Monday, somebody was reaching into their wallet or asking them to write a check. So we intentionally started moving away from the marketing and executive directors and looking at their boards, because you're generally on the board of a nonprofit because you want to improve the community, you want to do better, and you've got a more general giving service above self spirit than the person who's paid to be the front man for those organizations. And so we've intentionally moved away from the executive directors of our nonprofits into the boards. And that has been very successful for us because then they are interested in more things and have a more diverse network of friends and contacts. And that has also helped us. So those are intentional planning ideas that over a 10-year period we executed. Those aren't my ideas. And I think that's important for me to emphasize, and Mike led us to this. I didn't come up with all this. I inherited all this. I was part of the conversation back in the day only because I was the program chair and I was the one responsible for keeping everybody entertained, and they wanted good speakers. And then for 2 years, I was the membership chair. So that's intentional as well, because as a president now, I'm looking into my club and I'm putting in programs and membership and recommending as the president-elect designee our members who are connected, our members who I think have the personality and the connections to grow our club. That's the most important thing to me as I'm building a succession of leadership. And I can tell you, and I think Mike will back me up on this, it is the reason I was asked to be president of the club, because they were looking for my military connections, which I have delivered. I've brought about 10 officers into the club. And it'll be different now. I mean, because you're kind of tapping that well out. Now we're going to look at members in other areas to do different things. But the idea is the same. Pick people who are going to be cheerleaders for this, keep the focus on it, and not let up. And every time I'm at the lectern for every meeting, I bring up membership. I talk about membership in front of everyone so that it's constantly in their mind. And my board members hate it. At the end of every board meeting, I go around the room and I go, so who are you developing? Well, I just brought you one last month. Okay, that was yesterday. What are you doing for me today? Every board meeting, I want to know who it is that you're working to be a potential member. I've got 12 board members. So that's my goal, is every month, at least 12 people are working it. And then they should be working their friends and people in our club to keep it going. So that's what we're doing. The attraction, what's our secret sauce, if you will? I've shared this with Mike before. It is our programs. Quite frankly, we have excellent speakers. We have a reputation for excellent speakers. It's a self-licking ice cream cone, if you will. It's an upward spiral. People want to be at our lecture because they are then recognized as a quality speaker, because we don't have bad speakers. People want to be in the room to hear these people speak. And we try very hard not to lose that momentum, because I'm afraid that would unravel in a hurry if we started having mediocre speakers and programs. Then people go, I don't need to go to Rotary. I don't really want to hear that anyway. And then you just got to get out of the habit, out of the idea of Rotary and staying engaged, and it can unravel in a hurry. On attrition side, I'm just going to say we're an old conservative club. Like I said, first club in Florida, 41st Rotary out of 47,000. Our people die. I mean, literally half of our attrition is you die, and there's nothing we're going to do about that. We also have a fair amount of attrition just due to retirement, and they leave the humidity and go back to wherever they came from, move to probably North Carolina, move to their mountain cabin or whatever, maybe the Caribbean. But we have a fair number of people that just, they're done here and they move, follow the grandkids or whatever. And we're not going to stop that. No matter how good our attraction is, those two things are unavoidable. And as we looked at our numbers, that's pretty much our 10%. That we're going to lose that no matter what we do. And so if you're a 300 member club, which is our goal, you've got to bring 40 people in every year to absorb that. So that's just the numbers. And we recognize that. We keep our eye on it. We don't ever relax. So there's just a commitment to staying after it. I've seen a lot of loss from people that I can't get to talked in to go into RLI. We have a very good, I'm very proud of our orientation program. It's 2 separate events, an hour long. And we really pump up our history, because we're very proud of our club and what we've done, because we've been around a long time. But if I can get somebody to go to the Rotary Leadership Institute and really understand Rotary from the top down, those people tend to stay. If I can't even get them to give me a Saturday, within 2 or 3 years, I lose them. And I mean, literally half of the people I lose retention wise, you look at it and they go, they didn't do RLI. So it's just a real quick early indicator for us. And when we see that after a year or two, we start leaning on their sponsor and go, hey, can't you, drag him down there? Why don't you go do RLI 2 or 3 or go do a master's course or something and take your protege down there and do some mentoring. And then the other thing that we find is very successful is we are very intentional about having socials, because if you don't meet outside of just the luncheon, there's just not enough time. People come running in from their businesses and their jobs. Most of the people that are in my club are busy, their lives are complex, and they want to be there and they show up, but there's really not time to get to know anybody. And then the speaker starts and the program starts, then it's over and you got a meeting and our conference call and you're out the door. So unless you do some kind of project together or a social, you really don't make that connection where you even care about the people you're sitting next to. So we're very intentional about having a big variety of different kinds of social events that apply to and appeal to everybody. And you'd say, well, why don't you just do that on your hands-on projects? And this is why I'm saying it's a template. That doesn't work in the Rotary Club at Jacksonville because we are a check writing club. You fit in our club. Most people who want to come to our club don't want a ladle soup. They don't want to pay fences. They just want to go make money and write me a check and put it in our foundation and have us pay for things that get done. And so we don't have that opportunity out doing good in the community to bond with each other. So we have to intentionally make that happen. And again, that's not all clubs. Different Rotary clubs do those kinds of things and they connect that way. That's not our culture and that's not who we are. Some of the younger folks want to do more of that, and we do have hands-on committee and they do get involved, but I just look at it from the top down, a 200 and almost 230 member club now. I got about 20 people that do that and they're the same ones over and over again, but it's not the culture of the club. So, and then last, I'm going to preempt your question, Mary, or maybe somebody else is going to ask it. So I'll just hit it right up front. COVID. We took a hit COVID. We didn't really care because we've been through economic downturns before. And at the end of the day, that's what it was. We took hits, they took hits in the Great Depression. They took hits in the recession of 2008. They're going to take another hit probably now as the economy starts to unwind. And we just accept it and we move on. We don't make that an excuse. And we just say, okay, that's part of hurricane season in Florida. And off we go. So we were early adopters. We're probably one of the first clubs to be on Zoom. And then we went hybrid initially and then exclusively Zoom. And we were probably one of the first ones to, pull the plug. We didn't want hybrid. We didn't want it to be an option. I didn't want you to be doing your laundry and checking the box that you had gone to your Rotary meeting. I wanted to see you face to face sitting in the room because that's what makes Rotary. And my opinion and the opinion of the club, because back to what Mike said, I'm not feeling this way in isolation. We try very hard to speak with one voice and stick with the same game plan. And we all agreed, I may be a little more vocal than most, that it was time to be back face to face. So the last thing I'm going to leave you with is the fit piece. You got to know who you are. You got to know what kind of member is going to feel comfortable in your club, because if you don't get the fit right, what we've found is you spend a lot of effort and a lot of time chasing down, hey, you missed 2, 3, 4 meetings in a row. You're not doing this. You don't seem engaged. You didn't do RLI. And you spend a lot of time and effort. And the reason was they never felt comfortable. They never really made friends. They never really connected with the club. And unfortunate, but they probably weren't right for our club from the beginning. And we didn't do a good job when we were vetting or developing that member. And consequently, because we didn't do the work up front, we lost on the back end. You say, well, you do your retention better, you could hang on to them. Well, yeah, maybe if I developed and vetted better, I wouldn't have to worry about retention. So that's a big thing for us. We would love to have been, I would personally, it's just an ego thing. I would have loved to have been Birmingham or Atlanta or Marietta and be a mega club up bumping around the 500 number. And we could have done that in Jacksonville, especially with consolidated government. But we chose 20 years ago to cap ourselves at 300, and we started sponsoring clubs. So now I've got competition, if you will, from 8 other clubs with Jacksonville in the name that we sponsored. The good news is we've already done the people come and complain about 12 o'clock Monday meetings. We've got a breakfast club on Tuesday. We got a sunset club on Thursday. We've got all that in Jacksonville. So if you come to me and you complain about when we're meeting, it's real easy for me. I pick up the phone and I call one of the other club presidents. I go, I got a new member for you. And they go, thank you. And everybody's happy. So yeah, sometimes I lose some people, but my other clubs in our district gain because we all do work together. And it goes the other way. I think I send more people out than I gain, but I have gained since I've been president, people that were coming from other clubs, and presidents calling me, yeah, this guy ain't going to fit in our club. He'd be great with your club. And so we work together as a district, especially with Jacksonville in the name, to make that happen. And the last thing I'm going to say is just, you've got to be committed to it. Membership has to be at the very front of your focus. And it's my priority number one. It's almost one of the interview questions, if you will, when our nominating committee gets the group in to decide who they want to be president 2 or 3 years down the road is, yeah, what do you think about membership? How are we doing? You think that's a problem? Are we good or whatever? And we want the people that are fired up, fire in their belly about growing our club. Because if we don't, we're going the other way. There's no standing still. You know, I'm a bicycle racer. I've done a lot of cycling in the years. I raced on the Air Force Academy cycling team. And we always said, if you're not moving to the front of the peloton, you're going out the back. And that's just the way it is. You can't just sit in the middle and pedal and coast. It doesn't work that way. So open it up to questions.
Yeah, thank you,
Hopefully I helped something.
Jim. Yay, that's great information for us. And as Jim said, what are your questions? What would you like to delve into a little bit?
What you got, Doug?
Yeah, Jim, thanks for all that. I was curious, Kathy and I had, early on in the Buckhead Club, you know, obviously we had a time period where we were all on Zoom, then we had a hybrid. Earlier on, my opinion was we needed to do away with Zoom altogether as we got back in person. But I kind of changed my mind. Kathy, you and I really haven't talked much about this, but I kind of changed my mind just due to some feedback I heard from other people. But it sounds like you all did do away with it completely. We have about, you know, our club's about 125 members, and we have about 20 or 25 pretty consistently still on Zoom. We'd obviously like to have them in the room. Little concern, you know, that they've gotten so used to it that, you know, we'll lose a lot of them if we terminate Zoom. I just wondered, did you all have much of a discussion, or did you just say this is what we're going to do?
We definitely had a discussion, and I was on your side of it, this conversation, probably 2 standard Ds off to, we should have pulled Zoom 3 months ago. So that was my perspective, just to set the stage for everybody else for what we're saying. And I'm going to back away from that individual, so you know where I was coming from personally, to the group, the board, when we were making that decision. And everything you just said was discussed. Mm-hmm. And we actually, because we had the data, I've got an outstanding executive director. Because we're a very large club, we have a paid executive director, which does a lot of our admin for us. And she could give us the names. I mean, she could tell us who the people are that are consistently on Zoom. And you looked at infirmaries, you know, at age, mobility issues. And we said, yeah, we're probably going to lose those people. But the way we collectively came together on that, the culture of the club, the connectivity, the idea that Rotary is about personal connections was worth the loss. And the loss was probably going to happen anyway, Doug, and maybe it happened a year or 2 earlier, but we just forwarded that attrition and just sucked it up.
Okay.
But we acknowledged it, and it did happen, by the way. You will lose, your attrition will be greater when the year you pull the plug on Zoom. You will have a negative. It will be a real hit. You'll feel it. You'll see it.
Okay.
Yeah, JD.
I was just waving by. I've got
You got to go. You got to go to your. You got to go
I'm
do
sorry.
good things in the community.
Jim,
Good
that
for
was
you,
excellent.
JD.
Excellent. I made a lot of really good notes on that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir.
Appreciate it.
Have a good day. Kathy, what you got?
Yeah, I have a question. I love your idea about going out to the board members of the nonprofits. We have a few executive directors. A lot of them are great members, and they have affiliated with us because we were doing a 3-year major project with their
Right.
organization. So my question, I guess, is, did you go to nonprofits where you were doing projects to
Yes.
go to these board members? It wasn't
Yes.
just a random, oh, I'm going to pull up the names of people.
No. We cultivated from the organizations we already had relationships with because of our grant work. Another thing that's unique about the Rotary Club of Jacksonville is we are connected to the DuPont Foundation. They match most of our grants, so that gives us huge firepower. The history of that, Jessie Ball DuPont, in her will and trust that set up this $1 billion trust, she had to have given money to your organization during a 3-year period between 62 and 64. And she gave to the Rotary Club of Jacksonville, Florida Foundation. And so we are in a handful of organizations that can tap into that. And the nonprofits know that. So they come to us and they're looking for that connection because it's part of their charter over at Jessie Ball DuPont. They got to funnel the money. Well, because we're not the nonprofit, even though our foundation is a nonprofit, we're funneling the money. It allows the Jessie Ball DuPont Foundation a way to send money out where they want it, that they wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. But
Brilliant.
and that's a little bit more specific than you need to know. But to answer your question
Yes.
directly, it is the relationships.
The club had relationships.
We had relationships with those
Yeah.
boards.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Jim, Bruce Partington from Pensacola. I think we're actually the second club in Florida.
Very nice. Come on, man,
and,
catch us.
Yeah. I don't think we can catch you chronologically, but it's what you've said actually is fascinating because it's in many respects mirrors what we've done, but you've done it far more intentionally, which I think is good. I mean, like your club, we're really a check writing club. We also have a foundation, which actually gets used by a lot of the other Rotary clubs in the area. We've actually got, I think, 12 other Rotary clubs in the immediate Pensacola area, which, and I was going to ask, how many other clubs are there in the Jacksonville area?
And I can specifically answer that right now intelligently. There's 22. And the reason I can come so quickly with that number is we have a very big project in Jacksonville. It's called the Emerald Trail, and we're trying to be Atlanta. You know, we're a baby Atlanta down here. We know that. And Big Brother's got this wonderful, fabulous green ring, and I'm a cyclist. I'm a Delta Airlines captain, so I've spent 30 years in Atlanta. You know, I get on my bike and I ride that course through Atlanta. I think, man, why don't we have something like that? And well, we're finally doing it. So we're building this 33-mile Emerald Trail, and we've gone out to the clubs in St. John's and Clay County and all the clubs that are in Duval County and go, you can't be a suburb of nowhere. And we are the downtown club, and we need this greenway to connect everybody. And so we are using our foundation just the way you are. All the clubs are funneling their money for this Emerald Trail into the Rotary Club of Jacksonville, Florida Foundation. So we've got 22 clubs members putting money in our foundation. Line item, QuickBooks, you know, it's going to Emerald Trail. But yes, we do just what you're doing, Bruce.
Right.
And quite a number of clubs doing it.
Yeah, one of the challenges we've had is that a lot of the businesses that used to have senior executives here, you know, like, for example, Gulf Power, has now been acquired by Florida Power and Light. You know,
Right.
so they don't have the senior executives, which used to be, you know, the folks we would go after like you did.
Right.
So that's been a challenge for us, but it was I really enjoyed the way you discussed it. Because of the intentionality with which you're doing it, and I think that's really important. And I'm going to try to bring that to our folks. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Bruce will make the recording available. I was realizing as Jim was talking that this will be a very valuable recording that I can use across the zone with the larger clubs. And providing Jim
No,
says,
of course.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
okay. We don't
Yeah,
need to,
I try to not say or print or email anything that I don't want, you know, on YouTube and
Mhm.
Twitter.
Yeah.
okay.
That's
But we can
smart.
do blank spots and things
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
Any other comments or questions?
I
For
do have one
Jim?
question. Jim,
Uh-huh.
oh, go ahead. Well, I'll tell mine or ask mine real quickly. Jim, one of the things that I know my club has had problems with is exactly what you said about recruiting people. And it's that intentionality, and biggest thing in my mind is thinking once a week and knowing I've got to answer myself or maybe somebody else about who are you thinking about, Mike?
Yeah.
If I don't do that, it doesn't happen. How does your club get, because you got to acquire 12%
A lot of
just
people.
to stay even.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that on a big base, that's 30, 35 people. How do you find 35 people out there? And with it's actually 50 people with the growth you've got.
50 is what we shoot for every year.
Yeah.
It's,
So
yes.
how do you find them, and how do you stay after that to make certain that they're actually doing that?
It's, well, of course, the 12 captured people on my board, you know, and my 4 officers on top of that, it's just daily, almost, you know, I'm in constant contact with them. And then I try to make a point, just as president, as any leader would do, you know, step into the committee meetings, and whatever the committee is, it doesn't really matter. I said, well, who are you interacting with? Okay. Have you approached them about being a member? You know, who are you partnering with? Is somebody in that group that we're trying to help or we're working with? Do we have a Rotarian in our club already in that organization? And if not, why not? A perfect example where we're failing right now, so I'll give a negative. We're writing a $250,000 check to Groundworks Jacksonville for this Emerald Trail on behalf of Rotary. And I don't have a Groundworks Jacksonville member in my Rotary Club. And I just had Kay Ehas and John Erling in front of me yesterday. And I kind of said that from the lectern, you know, kind of put them on the spot. It's like, you know, come on, you be part of this group. And so it's back to intentional, like Bruce was saying, but I can't shy away from it. And that's part of who we select to be president of this club right now, with this as our focus, is that you've got to be direct. And we're looking for leaders of the Rotary Club of Jacksonville that are not afraid to call people on it. And so, you know, and I'm there early before the meetings, and I'm talking to people, and I'm greeting along with all of our red badge folks. I'll ask and I follow up and I say, well, hey, Renee, you know, what's going on with that Reed Jacks gal? She was supposed to be a member of our club, you know, Ms. Weiss, what's going on there? Oh yeah, she's still filling out her application. Okay, well, that's what you said 2 weeks ago. How about you and I take her out to lunch, or let's give her a call? So it's constant follow-up. And yeah, I think you were probably looking for maybe a template or, you know, some spreadsheet, and I know that DACDB has a very good CRM program. We actually do use it, but it's just bookkeeping. We don't use it the way it's intended. I was membership chair when that got introduced, and I went all in on it, but I couldn't get traction with the rest of the club with that, to use it the way it's supposed to be used. So just honestly, it's just being used as a spreadsheet, not the way it should, where follow-up phone calls. Who was the last person that talked to them? What did you talk about? Here's the thread. Hit them with this. We're not using it the way it could be used. It's a powerful tool, but we're not using it.
Thank you.
Thank you. These are great questions. Anything else you want to pick Jim's brain about? We're coming up on the hour. I don't want us to go over. Anything else?
How big is your membership committee?
I divided it, and this is something I did when I was membership chair. I divided it into 4 flights. This reflects me being a squadron commander at one point. I've got 4 on a development team. I got 4 on vetting. I've got 4 on orientation and 4 on retention. So my membership team is 16 people.
Thank you.
Mhm. What else? Bruce, Tammy, Daryl, we haven't heard from you.
He's being
Anything-
polite. He's trying not to pick on me.
Doug, anything else from you?
No, I think not. This has been really great though, Jim. I appreciate your time.
Yes,
Mhm.
sir.
Well, I thank all of y'all for being here. Clearly, y'all are interested in membership and intentionality and focus, some of the things that Jim mentioned. And so I believe this is good information to have. One of the things when Jim and I were talking that I recognized that he said was, and these are my phrase, not his, about recognizing the current reality of things and the current reality of the society. And the example I remember, Jim, that you talked about was how the medical field has changed. And I know this was in my club too, we used to have doctors in the club,
Right.
and now that's
No.
not really an option because of the changes that have happened in society and how they operate and work. And,
They're
so-
just employees, Mary.
they're employees. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
recognizing some of those shifts that have occurred in society is part of what we have to do in order to know what our current reality is and how we need to adapt. So thank you.
You're welcome.